Lyricism is one of the elements in hip hop that helps it stand out, where instead of singers and people who play instruments, rappers use the use of how they can bend literary devices such as metaphor and similes, as well as also, the flow, the cadence, basically very similar to spoken word. However, despite the fact that some people may believe that lyricism and what makes a good rapper is all about complexity and how complex you can make a line, how many metaphors can you put together and make them all witty, how many similes can you make that are very clever, how many puns, all that and much more. Sometimes in rap the best line and sometimes the best bars are not so much the complex ones but the very simplistic ones. The beauty of simplicity is the bluntness in which rappers express things where they do not abide by the lyrical premises or rhyming obligations that lyricism makes them have to answer to, but instead they just try to get to as the direct point as much as possible to you, the audience, so you can see what they are talking about. By expressing to you how they feel or what the scenery they're trying to describe through imagery without no fancy little metaphor or simile to complement the line, but just directly telling you what it is. A rapper, I think, who does that very well, of being able to tell you what it is but still have such creativity in such simple, straight to the point lines, is Vince Staples. I'm not saying Vince doesn't have quote unquote bars or he cannot get lyrical in his own way and that he doesn't have any witty lines. He does. But I feel like some of his best lines are more simple and straight to the point rather than metaphorical. Lines from like Pimp Hand, where he says, I was born in the river, not baptized in it. Or from North North, where he says, I'm a gangster crip, fuck gangster rap. Or for a song from his FM album in 2018, the song Fun, where he says, my black is beautiful, but I'll still shoot at you, dog. Tupac, Death Tells All. And one more from the Prima Donna album, where he says, I know my pigment is not that of a businessman. I know they think I'm ignorant, I'm fucking up my privilege. I know that money come and go, so money not my motive no more. I made enough to know I'll never make enough for my soul. Lines like that are very simple. They're not riddled with metaphors, similes. They're not multi-layered, double entendres. They're very simple lines. But the thing is, despite them being simple, they're very powerful and in a way clever in their own right without being metaphorically clever. This is more so in the wording as well as also the content. And Vince is not the only rapper who does this. Other rappers do it. Other rappers have had great, simple, simplistic lines that they have spit. Much of rap's very great quotables are simplistic. So he's not the only one. But I feel like with Vince, he's a good example of rappers who use simplistic lines to almost be where their best lines are simplistic, and he's contemporary. And plus, he does certain things that I feel like not many rappers, even great rappers of all time, do like he does. Like with Vince, I feel like there's certain factors to make him write the way he does, to where his pen is very unique. And I feel like the factors are that the way he uses the syntax and wording of his lines. When you look at the lines that I posted and gave you guys an example of, those words and those bars have a very unique wording to them. One, for example, the Fun song, the way it's worded, the way, how he pretty much talks about the dualities of someone who both values their blackness but will not hesitate to shoot someone. And another thing with Vince, I noticed that he does something where he bleeds his personality into the pen. If you know what I'm talking about, I mean, like, he puts his personality in his writing, and you can tell by the much satirical, almost sarcastic way you can read his lines. If you know Vince Staples' personality and have seen an interview, you know how his personality is. He's very sarcastic, very kind of what you can say like a character in hip-hop due to his personality of being very humorous. When it comes to his writing, you can get that sense that he really bleeds his personality into the pen. And for a writing like that, if you're a writer who wants to know how to really put yourself in your writing, not just make it be words on a page, I feel like, and this is just my own belief of how you can do it, this is what I do, I believe that what you should do is really just write your observations, your truths, your beliefs. I think with writers is that writers tend to have such a roller coaster of emotions when writing that you don't really want to put yourself out there on paper. Like, you're scared to really just be who you are, not only in the sense of, obviously what people do where they're kind of scared to be who they are, like, social media and all that stuff, and, in real life, but you're scared to do it on paper due to, scrutiny, criticism. And I feel like with Vince is that he really just puts himself on paper without really caring about what people think. So by living your truth and just having a little bit of creativity, I feel like, in my belief, is this is how Vince writes and why his pen sticks out to have very notable lines like that, to where even his most simplest stuff is more creative than the most complex lyricists. So what can you learn from Vince Staples in this video here to learn how to write and write simple lines that have such great meaning and great wittiness, not so much in a metaphorical but more in a different type of sense of just its depth, is that to play around with your words, play around with what you're describing. If you're trying to describe, say, your neighborhood, play around with those lines of you describing like the ground, the sidewalk, and play around with them. Play around with the diction, play around with the syntax. Have a sense of creativity. Another thing is to imbue and put your personality in your writing. And I know it's easier said than done. Maybe it isn't, hard at all for you. But for me to really get across how to do that, don't be afraid to put your personality in your writing by being afraid to put certain words that you feel are more suited to the tone that you want to put in your work. If you want to make your work joyful because you're a joyful person, don't be afraid of doing that. If you're a comedic person like Vince is, and you like to have a more comedic tone to match who you are, don't be afraid to do that. And, when you do all this and you put them together like mixed chemicals to make a product, like a chemist, you make a great product and you make a good piece of art. And don't be afraid to, if someone says like, oh, it's too blunt, it's not this, it's not that. Simplicity is a very much good thing to have in writing, because not all things need to be metaphorical and figurative. In fact, a lot of times simplicity beats complexity. That's all I got to say, y'all. Thanks for watching this video. I'll tune in with y'all in the next one.